Welcome back to another episode of Girls Know Nothing. Today, I have another man on the podcast. This is Dom. If you didn't recognize him, he was the founder of the first influencer agency in the world?
It was the first and biggest, I guess, certainly in UK and Europe, digital first talent management company.
Yeah, that's much better worded than I could put it. So Gleam Futures, as it's now known.
Futures.
Which now manages the likes of like Mrs. Hinch. But you did manage when you were CEO, Zoe Sugg, who was Zoella.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like really interested to have this conversation with you, just based on, obviously we were saying off camera about how I feel like women kind of dominate the influencer industry, and how a lot of school children nowadays want to become influencers when they leave school. So just to kind of get your perspective now that you've kind of been in it from the beginning and then left, and what you get up to now. So I did openly admit that I liked stalking you on LinkedIn earlier.
Excellent. There's some excellent content on there.
Yeah, to be fair, like I always like stalking people on LinkedIn, but it's very annoying because it tells them. So I can't do it as often as I like. But you did start at university doing a performing arts degree.
I did, yeah. I did drama at A-level, and then I went on and did it at university as well. Well, actually, it wasn't a university, it was a college. I wasn't smart enough to get into university, unfortunately. But I did get accepted at NEN College, as it was at the time, in Northampton. And I did, drama, media, and popular culture.
So what kind of spurred those choices on?
I think because, I never really knew what I wanted to do. But I did know that I wanted to elongate the fun that I was having in the education system. And I wanted to go to college. I wanted to, have all the experiences that you get at leaving home for the first time, living on your own in a different city, all of that kind of stuff. So I picked the course that looked like the most fun, to be fair, if I'm honest. It wasn't really an academic or vocational decision.
Was it fun?
It was so much fun. I had the most fun over those 3 years, yeah. NEN College was one of those places it was full of people that had slightly fucked up their A-levels and really wanted to try hard and carry on trying to educate and, have the college experience. So it meant for a group of really good friends, and we had amazing experiences.
To be fair, I always find that people that did fuck up their A-levels, like I fucked up my first year, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, like as long as you have some sort of direction or you kind of have the work ethic behind you to kind of go for it.
Yeah, totally.
But I want to know, what would be your, if you were an actor now, dream role?
Yeah. Oh, God, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that. I had never thought about it because my acting ambition got stunted very quickly as soon as I'd left college. I did, for about 6 months, I thought, I'm going to give this a bash. I'm going to try and be an actor. And then I got cast in a movie about a bent copper, basically, a corrupt policeman. And I was the corrupt policeman. And it was budget of pretty much zero. And it was grueling. I'm now one of my best mates is the guy that directed it, and we laugh about it still today. It's still not finished, by the way. But it kind of put paid to my acting ambitions. And during that time, I got into wanting to earn some money, and I got interested in media and moved on fairly quickly. So I've never thought about my dream role. Let's be cheesy about this. James Bond.
I was going to say, when you were talking about being a bent copper, I literally thought Line of Duty in my head.
Yeah.
It's like H in Line of Duty. We found him. He sat on the sofa.
Yeah, maybe. I would love that, yeah.
But so yeah, when you were talking about how you wanted to earn some money and tried to move into a professional career, I did say on your LinkedIn project manager, but you obviously explained to me that it's not project management that you ended up going into.
Yeah, it was more of a fancy way to describe coming up with more interesting and creative ways to sell media on media platforms, basically. And this is in the days, remember, just as mobile phones were being invented and the internet was just coming up the back straight. So they were interesting times. But I got addicted to that side of the media and entertainment industry in terms of the commercial part of media. So newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, networks. And of course, that gave rise to when the internet popped off and then social media. And that kind of gave me my grounding in media to be able to recognize the value being created on social media platforms.
So I guess that must have been like a really interesting time to kind of be around like advertising and media space. Obviously, when you were saying that sort of mobile phones and the internet was kind of starting to come in, did you find it really hard to like adapt to all the new things that were coming in at such a fast pace?
Honest answer, no, because I was lucky enough to be doing this job and kind of like trying new things at a time when the pace was actually a bit slower. So the internet was just beginning to be a proper platform for talent and brands. It wasn't anything when I started out. Same with mobile. It wasn't a platform really. And we take for granted now in 2022, 2023, like it's the be all and end all in terms of reaching engaged audiences and the future and growth and all of those kind of things. But it really wasn't then. So I was lucky enough to have the space to kind of like get to know it, try new things without too much kind of A, competition and B, scrutiny. Which gave rise to quite a lot of experimentation, and it was a good time to be working in media for sure, certainly digital media.
Yeah, because if you say to a brand, like if a brand said to you now they weren't online, you'd think like, how do you do anything? Because you can't be a functioning or successful brand if you don't have some sort of online space or platform.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like comes on to you finding Gleam Digital. So I have listened to other episodes of your, like other podcast episodes that you've done in the past about how you founded Gleam. So how did that kind of come about? Like where did you see there was a gap in the market for digital content creators?
I was working in a production company at the time, and we had a department that managed talent. There were presenters on TV and radio mainly in sports, and I didn't get close to managing the talent. I was running the production company at the time, but we had a couple of agents that did. And actually, it was a great business, and I was happy there. But I had a big health episode. I told this story a few times to stop me. I'm repeating myself, but I got hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. At the time when it struck, I thought it's a brain tumor and my days are numbered, kind of thing. So it was a real like life affirming moment, like one of those kind of epiphany moments where you think, wow, this is life or death. I've got to consider who I am, where I am, my family, like everything basically. And I went and I got rushed in for emergency brain surgery and all kinds of stuff. But when I popped out of the other side, I had a drive, I guess, to want to be in charge of my own destiny all of a sudden. So, and that's what stimulated the founding of Gleam Digital as it was at the time. I came out of the production company having seen social media begin to take root amongst a generation. So all the young guys in the office at the production company were obsessed with Facebook that was growing at the time. YouTube had been around for a couple of years under its Google ownership. So that was beginning to kind of take root. And I was fascinated by people that were building audiences on those platforms. Specifically, I don't know why, and this is kind of like why the medium was so successful. I was really interested in makeup artists doing makeup tutorials on YouTube and garnering enormous engagement and audiences at the time. When I say enormous, nothing compared to the millions, hundreds of millions that you can find on social media these days. It didn't have that scale. But these guys were doing, 20, 30,000 subscribers and driving hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. And more importantly, driving hundreds of comments underneath each video asking for different looks, different takes on what they'd done, et cetera, et cetera. And as a media professional, like my business was about driving entertainment and engagement and then selling the commercial aspects of that. It fascinated me that like this is a totally untapped stream of engagement. And that's what I got into. And that's when I left the production company. I founded a business that advised brands mainly on how to connect with audiences, communities online and made up of these people that were creating content online. And I just wanted to do that on my own, kind of like sat in a coffee shop, like I had control of my diary. I could see my kids and wife whenever I want. In fact, I walked out the front door and went down to the local coffee shop. It was like a vision of, post-pandemic life in a way. I wouldn't go back there now, but it gave me that freedom, and it gave me that mental freedom as well to start thinking about what could be in terms of media and engagement and entertainment, and what these guys were doing on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter at the time. Instagram didn't exist, it's worth saying, was like, seismic shifts in the way that people engaged with information and entertainment. And that's what I wanted to be a part of. So after advising brands for a bit, meeting the community, so one of my first clients was Chanel, very luckily, and who doesn't want to get involved with Chanel when you phone them up and say, hey, do you want to come to an event, and like a Chanel event, or do you want some...
Wish I got that phone call.
Yeah. Here's some amazing, beauty products or perfume or whatever, and do you want to come to a Chanel preview? Like, the community, the beauty and fashion online community, were keen to get involved. And I got to know them at that stage. I got to know those makeup artists and, those fashion bloggers and people like that were making waves from my perspective on social media. And we became mates, and I, at that point, maybe 6 months into this consultancy, I switched my attention into representing the talent that I was finding on social media. And nobody else was calling them talent. They were bloggers, and they were an exponent for PR companies to get some free mentions for their product on Twitter and YouTube. It was really at the time.
Yeah.
And because I had my media background, I understood the value of the clicks and the views and the impressions that these guys were creating, and the engagement there. And I tried to build value for those creators in their inventory, which was those clicks and impressions and views, and then started doing deals on behalf of the creators rather than the brands, trying to get some free exposure, etc. I started trying to do deals on behalf of the creator, protecting their rights, protecting their value, making sure that they were recognized for the uniqueness of what they were doing. And that gave rise to the management company, Gleam Futures. Changed the name because everybody's digital, this, that, and the other. And also I thought digital was kind of pigeonholy. These days, if you have a digital, what is not digital about what anybody does these days? So changed it to Gleam Futures, and off we went, managing talent where no one else was managing talent.
How did you kind of like find your talent? So obviously nowadays, if you go onto Instagram, you can find lots of content creators and kind of do outreach and pitches them. But obviously, if you were meeting people more face to face, and I think in somewhere I'd heard that when you founded Zoella, it was more organic than just seeing them online. Is that correct?
Well, Zoe was a friend of a friend kind of thing, and she was in the community. She was making real progress in the community, engaging audiences of young people with her girl next door brand of advice, beauty, fashion, just general kind of chat on her YouTube channel. And we were representing Tanya Burr at the time, who was, the fiance of Jim Chapman, and Jim Chapman was the brother of Sam and Nick Chapman, Pixie Woo, who were the first talent that I signed, the makeup artists I was mentioning. And we kind of met because we were in the same circles. And it just made sense I could see what was happening with Zoe's channel. And it just made sense to start protecting her rights, thinking about a career strategy for her, making sure that everybody was in the right place to positively affect their careers and their value, more importantly. And it kind of grew from there. So Zoe was a creator in her own right when we met.
Yeah.
And it was really fortuitous that we met at the time when her channel was beginning to blow up, just like everybody else's was on the roster. And we were able to start to put some guardrails around her value and her IP and all of those kind of things, and grow the career that is still flourishing today.
It's weird because when people think influencer, they never think about like kind of those things that you were talking about. But is there Was there ever a point where somebody said to you that your vision for what Gleam Futures would be would fail?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 years, absolutely. I mean, they didn't explicitly say, Tom, you're going to fail. But when I was asked at, middle-class suburban dinner parties, etc., what is it you do? Oh, I manage YouTubers. There was sniggers at best, This is in a world that has legacy media completely on lock, and people generally in my peer groups, middle class Britain were accountants, lawyers, surveyors, etc. It was a really weird thing to start to focus on, and they thought that I was basically taking my time up, not doing grown-up things, But that's kind of always been what has excited me, inspired me, is not doing grown-up things, basically, and making a business out of it. So I had to. There were always moments that all my conversations were with naysayers. So don't get it. But luckily, and this is key, I think, for everybody kind of forging careers in leading edge sectors and media and platforms and all that kind of stuff, is that it was the audience that spoke about the success. It was the audience that made the decision about who was successful and who wasn't. And then that had to be matched by the dedication of the creator, the work ethic, all of those things that spurred the careers, the amazing careers that generation of creator have had, and especially Gleam Futures creators of that generation as well. Incredible, but it's down to those two things. And I like the fact that it's that creator and the audience that make the success rather than any outside factors. That was the unique thing about the platforms.
Is there anything that you would knowing what you know now and looking back on your time managing talent, is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
No, I don't think there is, to tell you the truth. There were huge learnings along the way, because we invariably, our talent were doing the big things first. So publishing, licensing, all the big multi-platform brand deals, all the big watershed moments were with Gleam Futures talent, founding brands themselves. All of the things that you see now in the creator economy, Gleam Futures pretty much did first. We never did any boxing, but the other kind of stuff. And it was occasionally, it came unstuck. We hadn't thought deeply enough about what one particular press outlet might think, and what about this. It's a really deeply complex space, managing talent. You have to think about so many outcomes. But we always worked through it, got the best resources that we possibly could in place, and worked as hard as we possibly could for a more positive outcome, and came through those things having learned so much. And I hope that the talent that went through those moments with us would say the same thing. They're all still kind of successful and active in the industry.
What would you say was the biggest challenge in actually getting it started and kind of growing it to as big as it is now?
So I think the most important thing and the most challenging thing about growing a business these days is getting the right team on board. People, especially in our sectors, make a business. Gleam would not have been the business that it was without the incredible people that worked at Gleam. They were the making of the business. Both the people that worked at Gleam and then the talent on the roster. But with, people are obviously human beings, and every single person that worked for Gleam had their own needs, agenda, things that incentivized them, things that excited them or didn't excite them. And one of the hardest things about growing a business and being a manager and a leader is tapping into all of those people's motivations, and getting them aligned with the business, and servicing, the employee as well as the business is a really fine art, I think. But getting the right team, getting a good team is really important and hard.
Thinking back to talent management, I've had Hannah Holland, who is my manager, sit in that chair as well. And you are friends with her, so you do know her. And she says that one of the biggest challenges of being a talent manager is feeling the pressure of having a person's everything rely on you. So like, their personal life, their professional career, and like, their income.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel worried that you were like, you're basically responsible for someone's entire life?
Every minute of every day. Yeah, totally. God, it was one of the hardest things about the job was that responsibility. And I think one of the things that Gleam managed to carve out differently, and I know that Hannah is doing an excellent job at the same sort of culture at HLD, is this is about a long-term end game strategy for an individual, for a person in their career, not the next brand deal paycheck or the next newspaper article or magazine feature. It's about someone's security, financial security, and their kids' financial security, etc. And that was my motivation all the way through from the very start of Gleam. Like, we can build careers for these people. I'm sure of it. I was so sure of it. And then everybody that came through as a manager at Gleam, and even in all of the teams that came off of that, that management practice that we had, not podcast, there's a podcast department now at Gleam, but, apps, publishing, brand deals, all the things that come around the digital creator. It was all geared to furthering the creator's career and ultimately, success and security. So as well, when obviously Gleam was one of the kind of first in this industry, and when people started to catch on about how successful it was going to potentially become, thinking about competitors who had already operated in a similar market, were you ever worried that they could upscale faster and quicker than you and can get talent quicker than you? Totally, yeah, all the time, every day as well. Like, if I'm honest, when I got to the end of the Gleam journey and I exited, I was absolutely exhausted, mainly for the reasons that you've asked the last two questions for. Responsibility for people, and then competition kind of like becoming incredibly intense. Because the place we were operating in the 2017, 2018, 2019 media and entertainment environment was the most competitive environment on the face of the planet when it came to media and entertainment. Every business in that sector wanted a part of what was now termed as influencer marketing. They wanted a part of that because the dollars were so big and the coverage and the excitement around it from both brands and platforms was so enormous that everybody was having a crack at it. I mean, we'll talk about it probably a bit later about the fact that everybody has a crack at it talent-wise as well now.
Yeah.
And I constantly thought about the marauding hordes of competition coming over the headland. We were lucky in that when I started Gleam in 2010, I had a good 4 years of zero competition, getting everything in place, building a reputation, doing a good job for talent in a place that wasn't under intense scrutiny of every minute of every day. We were quietly having it away whilst the rest of the world concentrated on other platforms and other kind of like areas of the entertainment business. And that really helped. But by the time you get to 2018, 2019, then the competition is incredibly intense. And that's part of the reason that I did a deal with a big, global media conglomerate in order to muscle up and become global faster, bigger, faster, command the kinds of, the type of attention and have access to the type of budgets that nobody else could have access to for our talent, because they are the people that we need to keep delivering for. The other areas of the business were exponents of that. So yeah, I felt, the competition intensely all the time.
So obviously, you said that by the time you'd finished, or by the time you left Gleam, you were exhausted. Was that the main motivation as to the reason why you stepped down as CEO?
A combination of that. I didn't realise how exhausted I was until I went, actually, to tell you the truth, until I exited. And then it kind of like struck. We were in the depths of a pandemic and lockdown. I was in my little study at home, and
wow.
it was dark, and I was knackered. But there was a realisation that the business, and this is always kind of like the way I think, the business had become so much better and bigger than me. And the business we had such a great team of people in the business that were all champing at the bit to kind of like succeed and, be part of the succession as well at Gleam. And it was always the plan and to provide platforms for those people's careers as well as the talent's careers. And I could see that in a world where I wasn't 100% in control of the business, there wasn't really a place for me, and it would be better that I stepped away and, encouraged, cheering from the sidelines, the next generation of leadership and talent and all of the great things that Gleam did a good job at in the first place to step forward. And that's what happened.
Did you ever, obviously it was during the pandemic, did you ever think, I made a mistake by stepping away?
No, I didn't. I didn't because, Gleam is still flourishing inside Dentsu Aegis, and they're doing a great job. They've got a new leadership in there at the moment now. So we're on another generation of leadership at Gleam and new talent coming in all the time. And it still succeeds doing what it did, back in the time that I was there running the business. But I think that any bit, and this is a thing that I learned over the last 12 years or so, is that the really good businesses are all about the sum of their parts rather than one particular individual, be that a talent or the CEO or anyone. And any really accomplished CEO will generate success out of that team of people and that business. You can't really pin it on anybody. And so me coming out of the business, I think should have been, and I hope was, a stimulus for the business to carry on and succeed. And that's all I wanted for it, really.
I mean, it's obviously worked because I feel like I'm very sheltered in this industry, and I don't feel like I know very many people, but I knew what Gleam was like way before I knew who you were. So obviously it worked out very well. And
that's the idea.
I am obsessed with some of the talent on their roster, I won't lie. So
okay.
But obviously, going back to one of the things you mentioned earlier about what influencer culture is like now.
Yeah.
About how, you can go online and there are so many people that refer to themselves as content creators, as influencers. And the market is, in my opinion, sometimes very oversaturated. Or when you speak to school-age children, the first thing they say they want to be when they grow up is an influencer. Does that worry you in any way, shape or form? Or do you ever think I wish that it wasn't like that?
Yeah, it does. Yes, I do wish that it wasn't like that, because I think that in a lot of cases, not all, people are driven by for the wrong reasons to want to be an influencer. First of all, and I've always been fairly vocal about this, I hate the word influencer. I think that it vanillarizes what is a really kind of skillful and rare talent that people have to be able to engage audiences on social media platforms at scale and be dedicated and tenacious and reliable enough to create content at the levels you need to create content in order to be successful at that. And I think influencer just terms everybody as a marketing kind of export or platform or whatever. I need someone to influence a consumer for me. It's not just about that. Yes, that is part of what happens when you gain engagement and scale on social media platforms. And it's a good part and a big part of the talent's income stream so that they can carry on making content. Because remember, it's a completely independent job, you're not paid by a broadcaster or anybody else. But I think it belittles kind of the broad range of skill sets that creators have. I think that kids coming out of school now and saying, I want to be an influencer, if you drill down and find out what their motivations are, if they were enormously creative, wanted to find an uncluttered, uncensored sort of platform to realize their creative dreams, and amazing. But if it's because they want some free shit and they want to, earn $1 million, then or be famous, the third thing, then I think that's the wrong reason. And it can become quite toxic because of those things. Someone told me, actually I say recently, but many times over the last couple of years, being an influencer is the number one career goal for the majority of school leavers now. So it ranks above pilot, doctor, professional athlete as being what people want to be. And like everything, I think when there's that amount of scale and attention on a career, then it tends to water down the quality somewhat because everybody wants to have a bit of it. And I think the buyers in the market as well, so now it's publishers, broadcasters, marketing directors, etc., are still not got the knowledge and experience to be able to make informed and effective purchase decisions when it comes to that talent. So what you're getting is a complete impasse, massive volume of talent, not quite enough engagement on platforms to service the volume of talent or wannabe talent on the platform. So you're seeing engagement rates drop off a cliff. And then a lack of experience in the marketplace, the commercial marketplace, to make those buying decisions, to keep the reputation of what the creator does safe and elevated. And I think we're on a bit of a downward spiral. If I'm honest, I think that it might be an unpopular opinion in the influencer world at the moment, my opinion. But I think we're on a bit of a downward spiral at the moment when it comes to digital first talent and quality.
I think it's mainly because, so from my experience of going out and speaking to school-age children that say they want to be an influencer, is because it's very glamorized, I think, on social media. You see all the holidays and the free share and like the nice clothes, but what you don't see is the long hours you're up editing, creating content. Obviously now with the oversaturation in market, how you find your niche, how you keep your audience engaged and how you stick out from the massive crowd of people. And I think that's probably part of the problem because, there are massive influencers out there or content creators out there that I think are, they're not the rule. They're like the minority.
Yeah.
That are like very uber successful in what they do. But I think it's because it's more organic as opposed to just being like, I want to take pretty pictures for Instagram.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the success potentially lies in the future. And like brands I've spoken to say that they don't want someone who will just take a pretty picture. They need somebody with substance.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if you put all your eggs into the influencer basket, you're probably going to miss that substance that's needed. And where do you, in the future, what do you see like the influencer platform becoming into, or like if it's even going to be a thing anymore?
I think it will be a thing for some time to come because I think that the scale is so huge now. It depends on how powerful and influential the commoditization platforms for influencer become. So the platforms whereby you stick a tenner in and it spits out 5 influencers that might want to take a proportion of that tenner in order to feature your brand kind of thing without any human interaction or like procurement process that involves what you've just described, like how does this content really fit with what I want to do and go beyond just taking a pretty picture. But I think that it will, social media platforms will continue to be incredibly popular and powerful and be powerful at selling product to consumers. But I worry about the lack of safety, control, the sheer volume of anonymity available on social media platforms. So I'm hoping that there will be something else that happens, and I have a kind of an idea of what I think it might be, that allows the creator and the audience to feel safer and more accountable on a platform. And get that quality content back again without it having to be driven primarily by a brand transaction. And I think that it will be, if I were to pin my colours to any mast for a future gazing session, it would be subscription platforms. So how subscription platforms grow now as part of the ecosystem. And I'm not saying that the likes of Twitch, Patreon or OnlyFans will become the be-all and end-all of where creators create. But I think it will be a bigger proportion of where they create, because I'm seeing on those platforms a level of engagement and quality go back to the old days, back to 2010, 11, when it was just what the audience asked for in the comments. That would be what the creators made, rather than what's going to get me the most lucrative brand deal, what's going to get me that deal with such and such a fashion outlet, etc. And I think we're in a space now where the brands are becoming unwitting editors to the content that comes out of social media talent, which is a bit weird. But on subscription platforms, so let's take OnlyFans as an example. It's two million creators on OnlyFans in the region of 200 million monthly uniques. It's a huge platform, multi-billion dollar platform. But on there, you're talking about much more niche audiences. Yes, I know it's got a reputation for adult content, and there is a lot of adult content on there, but I would argue that it's still controlled, adult content. There's also non-adult content on OnlyFans, which people don't really talk about that often.
Yeah.
And it's coming from creators that are wanting to engage with audiences in their hundreds or thousands, rather than hundreds of thousands or millions. And they have a relationship with those audiences that is 100% engaged instead of 0.2% engaged. And the audiences that they engage with on those subscription platforms like OnlyFans is 100% accountable to them as well. Their IP addresses are logged. Their credit cards are attached to the platform. If they spread hate, they troll, they send unsolicited pics, all of that kind of stuff is much more controllable, and it creates a much safer environment for the creator and the audience than you can get on AVOD social media platforms. So I think that direction is a direction that creators and audience may head into. Audience that are awash with content on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, that they have to pick their way through to find the creators that they want to engage with. But then the antidote to that being, I'm just going to subscribe to these 4 people here. It does cost me a few bob each month, but I know I'm watching every single piece of their content. It's not getting lost in the algorithm. And if I want to drop them a note, I know that they're more likely going to be responding to me because I'm one of a few hundred people that subscribe to them rather than hundreds of thousands. And it just becomes less anonymous. And I like that about the future of social media. I also think, by the way, there might well be a place for brands in that mix a bit further down the line. There aren't any yet, but I think there will be. And I think brands will search out that pure, really authentic engagement, again, to use those cheesy industry catchwords.
Do you think that the stigma of adult content on OnlyFans stop non-adult creating content creators being on apps and platforms like that?
100%, yeah. I mean, what would you say?
Oh, yeah. So I think we were having a discussion briefly off camera about potential content that I wanted to create that's not adult based, but then what platform would I use? Because if I used OnlyFans, I would probably get trolled because men would subscribe to my channel and then not find the content they were looking for. But then there are lots of other content platforms are jumping on the subscription bandwagon, but not at the same level or same way. So I don't know where you would actually, if somebody wanted to create that kind of content, where would you put yourself?
Well, I would encourage people to look at OnlyFans. It's disruptive, given, yeah? It is known as an adult platform. And if you don't want to do adult content, then why would you go on OnlyFans is the predominant question at the moment, if it's ever brought up. But there are also why not do it? You're not creating adult content if you don't want to. There's no reason. The platform's features are the same as a lot of other platforms, but it's just much more commercial and narrowcast in terms of wanting to encourage subscribers, and content's behind a paywall. And in fact, you can have a free channel on OnlyFans as well. You don't have to put it behind a paywall. Okay. And then you distribute, drops of content that are premium that you then charge for. So it can work both ways. But I would say to anybody that's I don't want to go on OnlyFans because people are going to think that I'm doing porn. Well, let them think that. You're not doing porn. In fact, give them a free subscription to go and check out what it is that you're doing. Not that there's anything wrong with doing porn on OnlyFans. I think it's a safer platform for adult performers than any platform out there, and empowers them in ways that previous platforms haven't managed to empower the adult creator industry. But what I'm interested in going forward is making a space on subscription platforms for talent that is compliant and growing and safe, and helping creators level up their content, be brave enough to go onto platforms like OnlyFans and create content that isn't adult, and be confident about the leveling up against the stigma and creating content in a much more controlled, valuable environment versus Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Do you think that, so we were talking about the way that OnlyFans is very hard to get on without providing ID. Do you think that's the way to go forward with like online safety? And that's a bit of a random question, but...
Yeah, so I don't like the anonymity that is available on AVOD social media platforms. I know that there's a kind of like, well, everybody deserves anonymity, et cetera, but I've seen the tsunami of negativity and hate that can come on AVOD social media platforms for creators, and they put up with it on a daily basis. In fact, just regular consumers, I'm surprised to learn, get trolled. If you're just a Joe Public or whatever and you're creating content, people will just say whatever they like to you in the comments, completely anonymously. And I think that's a negative thing about the space. So I like the fact that there's no anonymity available once you've got your credit card attached to a platform that you want to buy premium content. Everybody's IP address is logged on OnlyFans as well. And you're held accountable to that. And why not? If you're not going to be, trolling or hating or doing anything illegal, then you have nothing to worry about or to hide. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. I have young kids and I see them accessing entertainment all the time on various platforms, and I know, because they're under 18, I know they're not on OnlyFans, so they're not seeing any of the content that's available on OnlyFans that isn't for their age group. I see them on other platforms looking at content that isn't for their age group as well, but they just easily access it by simply turning on the TV in their living room. And that, I think there should be some changes there. I would love to see, Instagram and YouTube and so on. I know YouTube has they're trying to control the content that comes out there, but I'd love to see everybody be much more accountable on social media.
I think it'd be nice to see if there was a platform out there that was like OnlyFans for non-adult content that was geared more towards younger users, like your daughter's ages, and that they could access safe content their parents know is safe for them to be looking at. Yeah. Because I think one thing that as well, that when I do outreach at schools, is the age at certain, it's more, I've heard it more with boys than with girls, that the content they're watching is not made for their demographic as of yet.
Yeah. It's a tricky balance to make, isn't it? By keeping it kind of like aspirational for a certain age groups and not uncool, but also keeping them safe and making it a platform that's geared towards that age group, for sure. Maybe there's a gap in the market there,
I mean, if I after this podcast goes out, if somebody actually makes one of those platforms, I'm going to say that I said it first. But no, so I normally ask everybody that comes on this podcast the same question, but obviously I'm going to word it a little bit differently for you. So, as somebody who is a father to young daughters, who is somebody who managed women coming in an up-and-coming industry, in an industry where women are mostly dominating, what would you say to people that doubt people's success just based on the fact that they are women?
So I think that we are entering an age where, and I've got two daughters, where I honestly think that the future is so exciting and bright for women. I think anybody that doubts the velocity of someone's career or their qualification for a particular job or a role or anything like that, based on their sex, based on them being a woman, even worse, is a thing of the past very soon, hopefully. I see an enormous amount of opportunity for women now in the media and entertainment business, and that's what I know. I see all the women I know who have ambitions in that sector doing brilliantly. I think that having worked closely with women all the way through my career, I think women are so much better equipped in a lot of jobs in our sector than men to be able to kind of be successful. I think women team up brilliantly. You saw that kind of like, I think a kind of a version of that this summer just gone with the incredible success of the Lionesses, the women's England football team. And I watched that match and I thought, oh, they play so well as a team, because there's a lack of ego when women want to get a job done. Do you know what I mean? They're not thinking about specifically, well, how does this progress my profile, this, that, and the other individually. And you sometimes get that in men's, top level men's sports, athletics, etc., and in the workplace sometimes, I feel like, as well. And women just don't, they're not as susceptible as men to that. And they just work brilliantly together, get the job done at a very high level. I'm a big fan. So I would say to that person, like, you carry on doubting women in the professional environment, both in entertainment and in the workplace, and you will be left behind.
Well, there you go. That's to any other CEO out there that doesn't want to hire as many women as they should. But honestly, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I feel like I've sat here and I've learned a lot. I've just been sat listening, but I'm really grateful for your time, and thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice to chat.